The moment my sister's fiancé smiled and called me sir, my father dropped his fork like it was a loaded gun. His face went white, his voice cracked, and for the first time in my life, he looked afraid of me. But what happened next will shock even those who thought they'd seen everything. But first, let's go back to the beginning. The moment I heard the front door shut with that familiar, deliberate click, I knew something was off. My father never came home before 7. It was barely 5. I was halfway through folding a sweater into my duffel bag when his voice called out, calm, but with that practiced edge that always made me brace myself like I was waiting for a slap that never came. I met him in the hallway. He looked like he'd aged a decade in the last 6 months, shoulders tighter, jaw clenched like it was wired shut. Still wearing his work ID clipped to his breast pocket, as if the badge gave his words more weight. "You're not going," he said. Not asking, not suggesting, just deciding. I stared at him, not out of confusion, but because part of me still hoped, absurdly, that he'd follow up with something softer. A reason, even a lie. But he didn't. Just that one sharp sentence. He'd drawn a line in the sand without so much as a glance at where I was standing. "Not to her, not to them," he added, like my mother and Olivia had somehow become a separate species. My voice came before I could restrain it. "You don't get to decide that." His response was instant, automatic. "I'm still your father." As if that was supposed to be a trump card. As if biology was enough to justify the grip he tried to keep on my life. Then came the line that cracked something loose in me. "If you walk out that door, don't bother coming back." He said it not in anger, but with terrifying calm, like he'd rehearsed it. Like he'd been waiting for this exact confrontation and was finally delivering the killing blow. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just stood there, holding a bag packed with a clean shirt, a book Mom had lent me a year ago, and a birthday card I'd spent 30 minutes handwriting. And then I let my hand fall to my side. I didn't go. I told myself it was to keep the peace, but deep down, I think I just didn't want to give him the satisfaction of seeing me leave. That night, Olivia texted me, "You should have been there. She looked at the door all night." The message hit like a slow, cold wave across my chest. I lay awake until sunrise, the unopened card still sitting on my nightstand like an accusation. The kitchen was still, except for the low hum of the refrigerator and the faint ticking of the wall clock that always lagged 3 minutes behind. My coffee sat in front of me, cold, bitter, and untouched since I poured it. I'd been staring into it for 20 minutes when my phone buzzed against the wooden table. Olivia. Her name lit up the screen like a warning flare. I answered. "Hey." Her voice snapped through the receiver like a whip. "Why the hell did you tell Aaron you were transitioning?" The words landed without cushion, without breath. My heart didn't race. It just stopped, like the engine of an old truck choking out mid-drive. "What?" I said, not because I didn't understand, but because I needed to hear it again. Slower. Real. "Aaron told me," she said, pushing through, her voice threaded with confusion and something that felt like betrayal. "You said something about hormone therapy, that he should call you sir. Is it true?" There was a long silence, but it wasn't empty. It buzzed, alive with all the things I wasn't saying. All the ways I'd chosen silence over explanation, because explanations meant exposure, and exposure had never ended well in this house. He had misunderstood. Of course he had. But not out of malice. Erin wasn't like that. We'd been standing on her back porch the night of the party I didn't attend. He'd asked about my past, not directly, just the way people do when they sense a shadow behind the shape of someone. I'd told him, half-jokingly, that I hated how people talked to me like I'd break. Like I was fragile glass set on the edge of a table. People treat me like a girl in a world full of knives. I'd said. He'd raised an eyebrow. So, how do you want to be treated? I shrugged. Like someone with a spine? Called sir, even. He smiled and said, Yes, sir. The way friends do. Half a joke, half respect. We'd both laughed. It hadn't felt heavy then, but somehow, in translation, it became a bomb. That evening, Dad stormed in like a dam had burst behind his eyes. He didn't knock. He didn't speak at first. He glared. I knew that look. Part bewilderment, part disgust, part rage he hadn't figured out where to aim yet. You lied to me, he hissed. I didn't lie, I said, my voice flat. You never asked. Then came the line that would echo for the rest of my life. Your sister's fiancé called you sir. He said it like a slur, like it tasted wrong on his tongue. His face was the color of ash. I didn't flinch. I didn't nod. I let the weight of it settle in the space between us. His jaw moved, then locked. I raised a son, he said, voice cracking like old paint. And you want to become? No, I said, standing. My heart was calm. My hands weren't shaking. I am a man, just not the kind you raised. I didn't wait for his response. There was nothing left to hear, and he didn't stop me. For the first time in my life, he didn't try. It began not with shouting or ultimatums, but with silence. Dense, suffocating silence. For 2 days, the house became a vacuum. Dad didn't leave his room. No footsteps down the hall, no front door swinging open and closed. Just the low groan of the floorboards when he moved at night and the occasional creak of his bed springs. A man used to commanding every room he entered had reduced himself to shadows behind a closed door. Olivia's texts came one after another, apology layered over apology, all tinged with guilt she didn't know what to do with. I didn't mean for it to come out that way. Aaron didn't know what it meant. He just thought it was respectful. You were confident, that's what I told him. It was like watching someone try to tape together a broken mirror. The image wouldn't go back to what it was. And then Mom called. Her voice was wet, trembling. Is that why you didn't come? She asked. I paused, not out of shame, but because I knew whatever I said would rewrite how she remembered that night. No, I said finally. I didn't come because Dad said he'd throw me out if I did. She didn't argue. She didn't cry harder. She just went silent, the kind of silence that said, I knew it. And that hurt more than if she'd screamed. The next morning, Olivia's group message buzzed on my phone like a warning bell. Sunday brunch at Mom's? Everyone's invited, including you? She had thrown down the gauntlet. Not for confrontation, but for choice. I went. I didn't dress to provoke. No suits, no political statements. Just a button-down, neatly ironed slacks that fit. I wasn't putting on armor. I was shedding one. Aaron met me at the door first. Glad you made it, sir, he said, casual, respectful, unaware that 2 syllables were about to detonate the room. The clink of cutlery and casual chatter dissolved the second Dad heard it. The fork slipped from his hand. The sound it made on the ceramic plate was surgical, like a scalpel slicing through whatever illusion of control he thought he still held. He stood slowly, as if gravity had doubled. Face pale, mouth a tight line. I want to talk to you. Alone. I met his gaze without flinching. No, not today. The silence that followed was deeper than any I'd heard from him. He looked around the table, at Olivia, who looked down, at Mom, who offered no bridge, at Aaron, who placed his hand gently on mine, and then, with the dignity of a man who realized too late that the empire he ruled was gone, Dad turned and walked out. The door slammed shut behind him. But this time, it didn't echo like a punishment. It sounded like release. Time didn't roar forward. It slipped in quietly, like a tide smoothing over footprints in sand. Weeks passed, and with them, the tension that had once gripped every part of me began to dissolve. There were no apologies, no late-night calls, not even a passive-aggressive email, which had once been my father's preferred method of warfare. Just absence. And yet, absence can be louder than presence when it comes from someone who spent their life demanding center stage. Olivia was the first to mention it. "He's stopped going to church," she said one afternoon while handing me a potted peace lily for the windowsill. "Doesn't talk much, just sits at the kitchen table, staring at his hands like he's trying to remember what they used to hold." I didn't know what to say to that. I didn't feel joy, not exactly. I didn't want him broken. I wanted him to understand. But some men crack before they comprehend. Some rot before they reckon. I hadn't planned to move out so soon, but the moment I walked through the loft's sunlit doorway, something clicked into place. Like my body knew before my brain did that this was home. The walls were bare brick, warm with the memory of decades. A single window overlooked the river and caught the late light in a way that felt like promise. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Not borrowed, not granted, claimed. Aaron showed up early with boxes and quietly rearranged the bookshelf I'd already organized. Olivia arrived 30 minutes later and set 3 mismatched plants on the counter, declaring, "Every good apartment needs something living that doesn't talk back." Then Mom handed me a thin frame wrapped in brown paper. I opened it carefully, expecting a poem or quote. Instead, it was the photo from brunch. I was mid-laugh, head tilted back, eyes crinkled, and Aaron's hand rested gently on my shoulder, not possessive, not performative, just present. The kind of touch that says, "I see you. I've got you." That night, Olivia said something I still carry like a stone in my pocket. "It wasn't what you said that shook him. It was how certain you were. He's never known what that looks like." The next day, a single message appeared on my phone. "I didn't raise you to be this way." And he hadn't. He raised silence, fear, obligation. But I built the rest. So no, I didn't respond. Because the truth is, I was never a product of his making. I was the resistance to it, the counterforce, the result of everything he tried to suppress and everything I refused to let die. Now, when someone calls me sir, it doesn't burn, it doesn't confuse, it resonates. Because respect isn't something you inherit, it's something you earn.